Welcome learners to this mini lecture corresponding to pages 229 to 234 of Lewis Mumford's Techniques and Civilization. As we've seen throughout our study of techniques, all the new phases utilized some new materials. During the Neotechnic phase, new alloys, rare earths, and the later metals all became extremely important. In addition to this, inventors developed a new series of synthetic compounds that supplemented paper, glass, and wood. The goal for Neotechnic materials was to find materials with a high degree of conductivity, and this was due to the development and use of electricity. Hence the Neotechnic phase is when we're going to see the development of aluminum and the use of copper, which both were metals with a high degree of conductivity. As we look at the transition from the Eotechnic to the Paleotechnic phase, think back to our first 3 or 4 weeks of the course. We saw that the Eotechnic phase, the clumsy wooden machines of the Eotechnic phase, were transformed into stronger and more accurate iron machines during the Paleotechnic phase. We're going to see a similar translation or transition during from the Paleotechnic phase to the Neotechnic phase. And here we're going to see the translation of heavy iron forms into lighter ones. We're going to see the translation of heavy iron bridges into lighter, more streamlined steel bridges. We're going to see the use of aluminum as a building material. Through each of these translations, there's an increasing focus on careful and more accurate design. If we think back to the iron bridges, the designers of those bridges didn't really need to be as precise with balancing the strength of the structural strength and the weight of what they were building. As aluminum becomes a prime building material, this lack of focus on accurate design becomes unacceptable in Neotechnic engineering. For instance, to give you an example, the airplane. The engineers who designed the airplane and used aluminum to build the airplane had to find that precise point at which the airplane was strong enough to withstand the stresses, the structural stresses that it would undergo, while at the same time being as light as possible for performance in flight. So that's a good example of the kind of engineering that was important during the Neotechnic phase. Also during the Neotechnic phase, lightness and compactness become the emergent qualities. And I want you to think ahead here to week 10 of our course. And the culminating activity is going to be not only describing the Neotechnic technological complex, but also looking at where are we now, and are we still in the Neotechnic technological complex, or have we moved on to the next technological complex? And you're going to get a chance to decide that for yourselves. You're also going to get a chance to name that complex and to describe the current complex. So I want you to think about this, because I think that lightness and compactness is something that, if you would make the argument that we're in a new technological complex, that lightness and compactness is something that has transferred from one phase to the next. As we look at the transitions from each of these phases, certain characteristics do transition to the next phase. And I would want you to consider lightness and compactness as being a quality that has transferred from the Neotechnic phase to whatever phase we're in now. Or perhaps you use this lightness and compactness as an emergent quality to make the argument we're still in the Neotechnic phase. So that's something you can decide in week 10. Keep that in mind for the next couple weeks. Just to summarize, the Neotechnic phase utilized new alloys, rare earths, and the lighter metals. Something I did not address in this mini lecture, but important fact, is that Mumford speaks to globalization and talks about how the Neotechnic phase really starts to lead to globalization. He doesn't use the term globalization, but he he does talk about certain things being planetary. So check that. Make sure you check that out in the text if you haven't read that already. Also, there's going to be an activity where you're going to be asked to submit a Word document with a couple paragraphs on this topic of globalization and the Neotechnic phase. So make sure you complete that. And then finally, also make sure to complete the essay question corresponding with the mini lecture on the Learning Session 8 assessment. As always, thank you for watching this mini lecture, and have a good day.